Some years ago, our then membership committee, now connections committee, was put in charge of an important task. It was to come up with a new slogan for Kol Hadash. We actually opened it up to the congregation to offer submissions. We didn't quite make brackets to break it down, but we voted and voted again and tried to choose our favorites. And in the end, what we settled on was, "In good we trust." We thought it made the point very nicely, that we value ethics, and you might know another phrase that sounds a little bit like "in good we trust," and we're not that. But I liked some of the runners-up that didn't quite make it to the final cut. One of them was matzah without dogma. I thought that was a nice summary. Another one that I rooted for but didn't make it far enough, cheap and easy. Just think, wearing a t-shirt, cheap and easy. Wouldn't that be a conversation starter? Well, part of the point was that we weren't expensive and that doing what our congregation does is actually surprisingly easy because it fits with what you already are. But for some reason, cheap and easy didn't make it all the way through. And another finalist that we've still used in other contexts, like-minded people who don't think alike. We have a similar approach to life, but we don't agree on everything. In fact, if we did agree on everything, I would be nervous. We share common values and beliefs, and positive beliefs. We are not non-believers. We believe in human dignity, that we have the freedom to make our own choices, that we can understand the world and ourselves with reason and evidence and experience, that human beings have the power to influence the world, and that we have responsibility to take for ourselves and for other people. We believe in human dignity. We believe in Jewish creativity. Any living tradition grows and changes over time, as Judaism always has grown and changed over time. And our task today is to make our Jewish culture and our Jewish identities relevant in our times and in harmony with our values and beliefs. So we believe in Jewish creativity. And we believe in harmony and integrity. We want our Jewish life to be consistent with our personal beliefs, to say what we mean and to mean what we say, to speak and to sing with one voice and one mind. Now, as I said, this does not mean we agree on everything. If we mean it, when we say people can make up their own minds, that means we can wind up disagreeing with each other. We are like-minded people who do not think alike. Now, our diversity as a congregation is not just in our opinions. It also describes our personal stories and experiences. What kind of person joins a humanistic Jewish congregation like Kol Hadash? Well, I'll describe some of the kinds of people who have joined us. See if they sound familiar as people you know, or perhaps even yourself. Now, there is the boring story, like me. Humanistic Judaism started in 1963, and we're well into the second generation of people who were raised in that approach, who simply have stayed where they started. I was raised as a humanistic Jew, I was trained as a humanistic Jew, and guess what? I'm still a humanistic Jew. The boring story. There's also plenty of people raised in self-described secular Jewish communities that are very similar to a humanistic Jewish congregation. Communities and schools like those offered by Workers' Circle or the former Shalom Aleichem shulas, like my mother, who went to a Yiddish secular school in the 1950s before there was a humanistic Judaism. There's also those who have evolved over time. They might have been raised in some more traditional liberal Jewish institution, a conservative or reform or reconstructionist synagogue. But over time, they realized that they didn't really believe what the prayer book said, especially if they read the English side. They took a college class in comparative religion and realized this is a human phenomenon. This doesn't come down from Mount Sinai. Or maybe they had life experience and they said, I just am not now where I was. I've moved, I've evolved and changed, and the Judaism I was raised in doesn't speak to me anymore, and maybe I want to look for something else. Now, there are those who evolved, and then there's also those who are a product of revolution instead of evolution. These are people who left a traditional fundamentalist approach, whether it's Christianity or Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Judaism. They were exposed to the conclusions of science and archaeology. They went on that thing called the internet, and they found truths that didn't fit with what they had been told had always been true. And they found other Jews who did things differently than the way they had been told Jews always did things. They may themselves have found their own identities were beyond the boundaries allowed by their tradition in their own LGBTQ identity. And they may have decided that an insular community that assumed that all truth was within and all authority resided in the rabbi or the rebbe was just not for them. They needed something else. And they went out and left and escaped to seek it. There are also those who are a product of the mixing with the broader world. It's been a feature of Jewish life for the last generation and a half. It's what we used to call interfaith families, what we sometimes call intercultural families, although nowadays we just call them Jewish families, if they so identify. It's someone who found a loving partnership with someone from another religious or ethnic heritage. And this partnership raised questions about their own Judaism. And they realized that their Jewishness was really a cultural identity. And they found that a cultural Jewish identity with a human-focused philosophy was the best fit for their family, and that's why they found us. Often the non-Jewish partner in that partnership was not that religious themselves. So it wasn't really interfaith as if they believed radically different things. It was intercultural because they came from different cultural and religious heritage. And our approach, combining a secular philosophy of life with Jewish culture, was a great fit for that family. In our congregation, all members are full members, and we don't ask pedigree questions at the door. So we have some partnerships where I don't know which member is Jewish. Maybe neither is. It doesn't matter. They find our community meaningful. We also find in these generations since the growth of intermarried partnerships, children of the interfaith experience who identify their Jewishness primarily as a culture and heritage. After all, they're part of multiple cultures and heritages, and they don't want to have to pick which parent or which side of themselves is the Jewish part or the dominant part. They like the fact that in humanistic Judaism you can be Jewish and. You don't have to choose Jewish or as an exclusive religious identity. We have plenty of members of our communities who had the ethnic Jewish experience. They were raised unaffiliated with any particular Jewish religious stream, but they always knew that they were Jewish and celebrated Jewish holidays at home, or maybe were part of an ethnic Jewish community that was reinforced either from within or sometimes by hostility from without. I'm thinking about former Soviet Jews raised in a context where they were told whether they liked it or not, they were stuck being Jewish. Or secular Israeli Jews, both in Israel and in the global Israeli diaspora, who've been raised with a consciousness of Jewish peoplehood, even if they weren't particularly religious. We have some members who are a product of discovery. They might have been told, you're Jewish their whole life with no content whatsoever, and then they went to look for more for themselves. Or maybe they discovered that they had Jewish parentage later in life, and they never knew it. Or maybe even they took a DNA test at 23andMe and found they had some Jewish heritage, and they decided, let's find out more. They appreciate that a humanistic Jewish community celebrates self-identification for our process of conversion or adoption into the Jewish family. After all, if someone wants to identify with the Jewish people, they are adopting us as much as we are adopting them. They like the fact that we enable people and even empower people to choose from their cultural heritage what's most meaningful to them. And as I said, they are open, and we are open, to a multi-heritage individual and family. And some of our members are people who became Jewish. Maybe they married someone Jewish. Maybe they grew up in Jewish neighborhoods and always felt an affinity for this community. Or maybe just in experiencing the world, they had an affinity for Jewish culture, music, food, and everything else. I have an odd interest in my life. I really enjoy bagpipe music. There is no reason in my family biography or cultural background why I would like bagpipes, but I do. I enjoy it. Now, I'm not going to run out and become Scottish and start wearing a kilt. But if you have an affinity for a particular culture and it really becomes part of who you are, then it's appropriate to explore becoming part of that extended family, and that's what some people do when they join the Jewish family. But they might not believe in a personal God who intervenes in the world, who writes a Torah, and so we're the best fit for them. even as a secular convert. I often receive a question from people who do find our community. They say, why are there not more of us? Those stories are not unique to the people who are members of our community. There are lots of evolved Jews who are no longer connected to Reform or Conservative Judaism. There are plenty of revolted Jews who have left Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox experiences. There are plenty of interfaith and intercultural families out there, people with Jewish heritage or people who want to join the Jewish family. Why not more? Well, it's a joy and a frustration in my experience, because we get people who find our community and they say, I felt this way for so many years and now I finally found you. And I say, yay and ugh. Yay, you found us, and ugh, we've been here. We've been here in the Chicago area since 1969. We've been in the world since 1963. We've been here, but you didn't find us. Some of that's your fault for not looking, but some of that's our fault for not being out there. So now, this is the second question. If we do want to spread the good news, maybe not in that phrasing, but if we do want to spread the word of who we are, people often ask me, how do I explain who we are and what we do? What's the right way to talk about humanistic Judaism? There are certainly resources available. There are books and videos and audio podcasts. There are classes that I and others have taught. There are even professional training programs and certifications through our International Institute for Secular and Humanistic Judaism. But the most effective way to share who we are is actually very simple. What is your story? What do you find meaningful about your connection to Kol Hadash, to humanistic Judaism more broadly, to the Jewish people in your own individual way? In the evangelical world, they call it testifying. You share your story. And so if you want to become a humangelical and to spread our word, you need to testify too. Very early in my tenure with Kol Hadash, which will hit 20 years next June, a member asked me, why do we have such interesting people who become members of Kol Hadash? And the answer that came out of the conversation was, we find people who are interested in ideas. They're not joining for the convenient carpool or for the impressive building, although our building that we use is certainly wonderful. They don't join for social acceptance or for keeping up with the Schwartzes. They join because of their values and beliefs. They are seeking harmony through a creative Judaism. They are open to new possibilities and new ideas. They are looking for like-minded people who don't think alike. That is who we are at Kol Hadash. Like attracts like, and we like it that way.